Coming up on The Buck Stops Here.
This one hack saves me 4 hours a week. It saves me over like 100 hours a year. Like that's 2 weeks of paid vacation off for me. And I can't tell you how much it gets rid of the mental workload for me. AI really, at least in 2026, I don't think you should be looking at about replacing jobs at all. I think you should be looking at replacing tasks that your organization does, because tasks can go throughout the organization. If you try to automate a marketing manager or an operations director at an organization, I think you're going to fail. I mean, you're going to crash and burn, and it's not going to be fun to watch. You're going to make those people feel bad about their jobs. It's going to damage morale in your company, and you're not going to be successful. AI efficiency is not at all about being lazy. It's about elevating your human capital and unlocking what this tool can use for them. Welcome back to The Buck Stops Here. I'm your host, David Maples. And over the last couple of episodes, we have talked heavily about AI governance. AI governance is about putting the rules in place so that you, using AI, can go very, very fast, so that you can adopt it quickly and make sure that you don't crash into a wall at 200 miles an hour. But today, we're going to revisit AI efficiency. Now, we did an episode a few episodes back because this is part of our 9-part series on artificial intelligence and small business. So the episode a few episodes back dealt with AI efficiency and opportunity. It was more of an overview talking about how to build a framework and look at where you get the maximum impact in your business. But the listeners have asked if I could do a couple of things. First of all, in this episode, we're going to go deeply into AI efficiency and what it really is. We aren't going to talk about the trade-offs on it. We're going to talk about how can you actually implement this. And we're going to give you 10 practical ways, like literally 10 takes on how you can adopt this in your business. And I'm going to try to make those a kind of generic, but what I want you to understand is that they're tactics that I think can apply to broadly any company out there. So what most people think about when using AI is most people immediately go to efficiency. They think about it replacing entire jobs. And quite frankly, that is really the wrong way to look at this. Totally wrong way to look at this. And I think partly based on the kind of the feedback we're having in the marketplace, this is what people don't want. AI really, at least in 2026, I don't think you should be looking at about replacing jobs at all. I think you should be looking at replacing tasks that your organization does, because tasks can go throughout the organization. Everybody in your organization, depending on the organization, may have to deal with email responses. That is a task that you can come up with a policy for or a way to use artificial intelligence and get a really good return on investment because you apply it to everybody in the organization, as opposed to going into a very deep dive into one very particular role. I think the idea of automating everything within a role right now is just ludicrous. This is where people aren't getting returns. Now, the next episode is going to deal with AI opportunity, which I feel like that is really where the big wins are to be had for a lot of organizations. It's not about doing the same thing you've done, doing more with less. It's about doing things that in your organization that you didn't even know that were possible before. And they may not have been possible before in a world of AI. And we've been asked to kind of go more in a deep dive in that. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 10 concrete efficiency tasks that you can apply across any organization. And full disclosure, I've been doing strategy and marketing for 2 decades now. And so I have a lot of experience in these applications. If you're looking for someone to hire for this, check us out and reach out to the pod. We'd love to talk to your business about how we can do this for you. So I want to start for a minute. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the philosophy that I approach AI efficiency with. I think if you try to automate a marketing manager or an operations director at an organization, I think you're going to fail. I mean, you're going to crash and burn, and it's not going to be fun to watch. You're going to make those people feel bad about their jobs. It's going to damage morale in your company, and you're not going to be successful. So I think that now, first of all, I don't know that you actually should be trying to do that, but I think a lot of people are going after that. And certainly the big companies in Silicon Valley are looking at, oh, that's one of the reasons why Wall Street's been going bazonkers about this, because they love the idea of you reducing your headcount by, 10,000 people. They love the narrative coming out of people that, JP Morgan Chase or McKinsey has 40,000 fully autonomous agents doing the work of their people. I mean, I got news for you. That's table stakes. I've got my own agentic framework running, and I run 120 concurrent agents at the same time all the time. Do you know what it does for me? Filters email, it does some other things. It's not like having 120 full-time employees. It's just not a thing. And I'll show you the receipts if you want to see them. So with that, I think where you need to start in efficiency is you need to break things down into tasks across the entire organization. Now, you don't have to try to figure out all the tasks that are done in the job. Look at the top 10 things that your people do every day. Bring them into the office and let them know you're looking for ways for them not to just achieve more efficiency in the job, but you're trying to take off some of the minutia and those other roles. Now, I do want people to understand that there is a burnout problem on this. We're going to talk about it in a later episode. There's a possibility that you could really overwork your staff. And I do think you're going to have to start rethinking work at some point in time. Just to give you an idea, if you're using AI to do 60% of kind of the make work part of writing your drafts of articles, etc., there's a problem with that because none of it is good enough to put out the door just on its own. If you don't have a human in the loop, I don't think you're putting out good content. Now, maybe you're just a mediocre company. Maybe you're like, average is what we strive for at Acme Incorporated. And if you're just an average company, maybe that's where you need to stop. But I think for most people, you want to see how you can punch above your weight. You want to do more is what you want to do. So I think the one thing you want to think about very carefully here is if you're doing 60% of the cognitive lift. So for example, a lot of writers suffer from what we call blank page syndrome. It's this idea of it'll get you the first draft, but then the human brain power is used for the final critical 40% of editing, strategizing, finalizing, whatever you're doing, for lack of a better term. Now, by the way, I think that is actually the wrong way to go about it. I think that initially you should be brainstorming or informing the machine with things that make what you're going to write different. It's kind of the initial 10%. I think the AI machine can pick up 60% from there, and then 30% is that final polishing, et cetera. Better inputs in give you better outputs coming out of the machine. That being said, you cannot do that 30 or 40% of very difficult cognitive labor every day for 8 hours a day. It'll burn you out in a week. That is the harder part of your job. Part of the low-level pieces of your job are those parts of it that don't require all of the work. So think about it this way. You're running a race. Right now, the danger is that the stretching, the training, driving to the track meet, everything else is part of what you do in a day. And the heavy cognitive load is that moment when they shoot the starter gun and you are running 100 yards or 100 meters as fast as humanly possible. Now, imagine that I'm the boss who comes in and says, you know what we're just going to do? AI is going to do all the other part. It's going to do the stretching. It's going to take us to the track meet. It's going to do all those things on its own. And we're just going to run that sprint all day, every day for 8 hours. By the way, don't do your employee retreat anywhere dangerous, like not from a big height, because you will fall off the mountainside. Somebody might accidentally bump into you and push you. I'm just saying this is going to happen to you. You need to really think about what that looks like. I think we're going to have to totally reformulate how we do the workday. Maybe we just put in 4 or 5 hours a day of heavy cognitive work and we're just checking up on the machines. Other than that, people are going to need downtime because there is still a fundamental barrier on what human beings should do. Let me repeat that. There is a fundamental barrier. There is a cognitive workload. There is so much energy, gas in a tank. If you think you can run your sprint at 100 meters, whatever that is for you, if you think you can run that straight for 5 hours or 8 hours, you are basically a superhero in a Marvel movie. Let me chalk that up under things that don't exist. Now, it feels magical right now to use some of the AI tools because I think last week I heard Sam Altman or someone said they were going to engage in polyphasic sleeping because let me do my Sam Altman impression. I think we need to really think about how these machines are producing so much good work for me all the time. And Codex 5.4 is the greatest thing ever made on the planet. I mean, Gutenberg was a moron. The printing press was tiddlywinks and child's play. Fire was something I invented in my crib. And because of that, I'm just letting everyone out there know that um, I just have to go to polyphasic sleeping, which, by the way, those of you listening right now to the pod, polyphasic sleeping, and as somebody who tried to do this briefly in high school, it's this idea that you can sleep every 4 hours, you can sleep 15 minutes. Now, historically, people have done that. Some of them have gone insane, but there have been a few people in history have done it. And but basically, you just fall over and go to sleep every 4 hours. I don't know how many of you work in a job. I could just imagine myself getting stuck in traffic and looking at the timer, clicking down to 0, and be like, "Oh man, I'm gonna fall asleep in about 5 minutes. I'm stuck in traffic. This is bad." Anyway, the point about this is they are saying that they are so busy getting the responses and they're so valuable coming with AI that they're having to engage in polyphasic sleeping. I don't know how much of this is real and how much of it is just really good marketing messaging. I think it's the latter if you can't tell. But look, it's not there. I understand. The machines feel like magic. I mean, I was up till 2 a.m. last night working on code stuff myself, which not really because I wanted to, but because it's really hard to get some of these things implemented correctly, and you always overestimate your ability. By the way, I've worked in this stuff for years now, and it is not. Everybody's like, you just set up your Mac Mini and your OpenClaw can run in 5 minutes. I really want to punch that person in the face. I'm like, no, you have to eat glass for 4 weeks, and then your OpenClaw machine will seem like magic. And it's magic when you show it to someone else. I just realized that half of it is nobody wants to see how the sausage gets made. They just want to eat the sausage. They want to eat whatever food you're done with at the end. Anyway, that being said, I digress. So without further ado, I want to go into 10 of these high impact AI efficiency tactics that I tell people about when I come in. Now, some of these may seem obvious, but then I want you to ask yourself, are you actually doing it? If they're obvious, why aren't you doing it? Okay, number 1, meeting, transcriptions, and action items. Everything on the world, every AI tool, Otter, GoToMeeting, Zoom, everything has the ability to, bring in your meeting and transcribe it for you. I suggest that what you really want is you want the audio files. You want the audio files when you record, because the transcriptions they give you are potentially the most watered down, cheapest things they could possibly have done. You might be better running that through an agent yourself that can pick up sentiment and analysis. And once you just give it the raw page, by the way, there are certain tools that can listen to the way you're talking, the inflection, they can pick up sarcasm. For example, if I just transcribe this podcast now when we're done with it through a regular tool, it might have this whole thing about, like, I was really talking about how Sam Altman is the most amazing thing ever on the world. By the way, I do think he's done some amazing things, right? But he also did get fired from Y Combinator, so I don't know. So the reality of it is that they might miss the sarcasm. And so I'm saying you really want the audio file if you can get it. But if you can't, here's what I submit to you. I think a lot of people will say something like, especially if we're selling a tool for this, never take your manual meeting notes ever again. I think that's absolute crap. I think you should still take meeting notes for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't think you have to take detailed notes, but sometimes it helps you in the sales process. Like when you draw a word or you underline it or whatever, sometimes it helps you remember what you're talking about. But definitely use AI tools to transcribe the call. So this little handy dandy recorder is made by Zoom. It's the H3VR, if you can see it on camera there. I use this in any recording I go into with clients. It's got multi-directional microphones. It's good for a big room. I can put it on a conference room table and I can take it with me. The challenge is my recorder on my iPhone or an Android device is not as good if I've got 6 people in a room talking. Okay. I do think you also need to note who each person is who's speaking, because sometimes you may have to go through the AI later and let it know who each person is. Anyway, but I do think still taking manual meeting notes is still very useful. But you use the AI tools when you get done to not just transcribe the call, but to prompt it. You can say something like extract the top 3 action items, assign them to the spoken names, draft a follow-up email from the call, send meeting notes for the client that are part of this. The other thing about it, having your own recorder means that your notes and private information, if you have your own recorder, it means it didn't go into someone else's AI system necessarily. You can figure out using an API later, you can figure out where you're going to take it to. One of the challenges with a lot of the recorders that I've seen is that you don't know what they're doing with it. Sometimes they're training their AI on it. Anyways, that's just a detail. But the idea with it is that is a very low-hanging fruit, and you can Do this across your organization. Anyone who meets with any client, use it in a meeting every single time. So, and as a boss, you can also tell the employees, you can also say, hey, look, I'd like to review your meeting notes. It allows you, if you've not been in the meeting with a salesperson, actually to collaborate with them. And you're not relying on imperfect memory and recall to figure out what happened in a sales call. You know, it's not necessarily about micromanaging them. It's about like, how can you help be brought to bear? Maybe they didn't tell you the very important thing in the call. Maybe you got lost. Or maybe you listen to that call or look at a transcription later and you say, hey, I know you said we need to do this proposal, but here are the 4 things we missed in it. Here's the thing they care about. But use the AI to basically come up with action items and you have a better way. That's just an efficiency. It's an efficiency hack. And so for me, when I go back from a sales call, normally, historically, I'd have to put those items into the CRM, the Customer Relationship Management Database. I'd have to type up my notes, decide what was important. You could drop the whole transcription in, or you could put your outputs in there, or you could attach the audio file to it. And that's something you can do. And it's a pretty easy hack. Anyone who's in sales right now, anyone who has sales calls, I think every single person out there can benefit from that. Now, and that could be customer service reps. I mean, it could be account managers, anybody in the organization. And that's number 1. Number 2, presentation, outlining, and drafting. So one of the things about it is, and I'm not saying you should use the AI to build your slides for you. By the way, the AI slide makers are really not great. You actually, I think, do better using a template or your own branded template and then adding to it. I feel like they're much better. They go with your brand and really asking the AI to generate your brand things. It's really hard to replicate that across any organization. But what you do is you feed in your messy brain dump document, or you grab your recorder again and you talk to it about what your ideas on it are. And sometimes if you're like me, you kind of work in stream of consciousness. You come around to things, you say something here, and then 5 minutes later, you get back to it. You can actually take that and you can organize it in a more coherent fashion. You could take a voice memo and do that. And then you can ask it to structure it into a 10-slide presentation outline with proposed visual cues, for lack of a better term. Now, again, this only gets you to 50 or 60%. I think most people are trying to have it make toast for you and put jelly on it and make the bread and buy the flour. I had an episode several episodes back called All You Need Is Toasters. I think you should use it for the activity it's really good at right now. I think a lot of people with agents are trying to push these forward to the finish line. I still think you cannot. Well, maybe you can. Again, if you're Mediocrity Incorporated, totally okay. But if you're anybody else, and I think most people listening to this podcast out there are people who want to be better than just the generic average. Take that and then turn it into something great. The next one I'm going to give you is what I call the devil's advocate strategy tester. Now, I think a lot of people are using AI to help come up with the strategy for you. As someone who does strategy for a living, I'll tell you, we use AI to come up with the strategy, and then we don't execute that strategy. I'd say like the stuff in it is generally obvious. Of course, we need to be doing that. But what I do think the strategy tester is good for is the devil's advocate. Before rolling out a new policy, procedure, pitching a client, feed that to an AI. Again, you want this to be your own confidential source. You don't want to go somewhere else. And the prompt is something to the effect of like, hey, play devil's advocate. Give me 3 hard facts that contradict this plan, or provide another way of looking at the strategy, like what would be a different ZAG strategy as an alternative. I think it helps provide some level of hardening or protecting your plan. It's kind of like the joke in movies. It's like if a 5-year-old could, yes, Mr. Bond, I will tell you what our evil plan was. And then like a 5-year-old can pick it apart. I think this is kind of what you're looking for, is that sometimes you don't know. And I think the problem with the machines right now is they're so sycophantic, is that you really want to say, hey, put holes in my strategy. But remember, it might also do that in a very, very bad way as well. But at least you can do it as a way to see potential objections or potential problems of your plan. Maybe you haven't thought about the issues with that. And I guarantee the AI, no matter what plan I've gotten from it, I've never seen an AI plan that, like I have a strategy plan for a client, I've never once had the AI talk about the problem with humans implementing it. Like, well, the humans may not actually do this because it's too much work. That's something as a strategist, is always something I always have to look at myself. So number 4, and I'm kind of reticent to say this, but I want to make sure you understand where I'm at. First draft only of a standard operating procedure. You want to say, record a video, voice member of yourself doing a routine task. You want to feed the transcript into AI and write a step-by-step standard operating procedure for your team. And the cool thing is you just created a training manual in 4 minutes. Now, the way you do this is you create a video of it, but you just need the audio. And what you do as you're doing it, I want you to describe what you're doing on screen. Okay, so the first thing we do with our CM, you go to this place and you log into the CRM. Make sure that when you're doing this, you press the following button, not the following button. And you literally just narrate what you're doing. Now, I've heard people say like, oh, just have it look at what you're doing in video. That is literally the worst set of ideas ever. Just do it yourself and explain what you're doing to the machine and why you're doing it. Even if you have to go in a little bit of a circular fashion to do it, you can do that. And it makes a big, big difference on what you're trying to do. And you can actually come up with that first draft in just a few minutes. And that is a huge piece for a lot of people. I think the challenge is I've seen people like, I talked to a client of mine the other day, and he told me, he said, oh, I used it to write standard operating procedures for my industry. And I was like, you just didn't give it context? No, I told him what industry it's in, and it came up with a pretty good thing. And I was like, that is not how you guys probably do business. Now, maybe it is. Maybe it is. And it may be better than nothing. The challenge with it is, if you had nothing, here's the thing. If you're starving to death and someone brings you a moldy piece of bread, you're going to eat that thing right up, weevils and all. The reality of it is that does not mean it is a great piece of bread. It's just because you were desperate. Do a little bit of work. Walk yourself through your process, talk about what you're doing, and record it. Grab that handy dandy recorder and do that. Number 5, the content repurposing multiplier. Here's the way it works. You're going to take one piece of content you create and you're going to turn it into multiple pieces of content. So you're going to take a podcast transcript or a long email, and you're going to prompt your AI, something like Easy Prompter, which, by the way, is a piece of software we make to help simplify this for you. And you're going to turn it into a blog post, 3 different social media hooks. You're going to turn it into a newsletter snippet. Now, this has a little bit of diminishing returns. Each one of these things wanted to be polished up for that particular application. The AI doesn't always do such a great job of doing that. So if you just take your podcast transcript, like this podcast right now, and you said, turn it into a blog post. Well, this particular podcast episode has 10 points. I could probably turn it into 3 or 4 different blog posts. And I still have to think about my audience, like who's consuming that information versus who listens to the podcast. They're not the same people. They might have overlap in the audience, but you really want to think about that. And you want to spend that time, that executive function, that 30% more of your time doing that on the back end. I also think content repurposing works better if you start with that end in mind. Begin with the end in mind from the 7 habits of highly effective people. If you know where you're going with the content in the long run, it's much easier to design your podcast or have pieces around that design for after the meeting. Number 6, data formatting and cleanup. So this is a messy spreadsheet or formatting contact lists. Any of those things used to take hours and hours and hours. If you can get it out of Excel into a CSV, you can clean it up even if you don't know how to use Excel. By the way, I'm a magician and a wizard when it comes to Microsoft Excel, and I have not written many functions in the past 18 months because I'm using this. I think you want to format it in a clean CSV. If you still want to go look at it, sometimes you have to give it to your boss and they only want to see it as an Excel file. I think those things are really important, and I think that's what you can do. But make sure you put your data into an approved, secure AI tool. That's the expert piece for that. Number 7, complex document summarization. I kind of hate using this because anytime I give people this tool, they always use it the wrong way. It's like the kid you give fireworks to and you said, don't hold this in your hand. But no, the bottle rockets are cooler if I can shoot them at my friend. And then they invariably blow up. This will blow up in your hand if you don't do the right thing. And I've seen all sorts of people do this. So you're handed a 50-page PDF or a dense industry report. You can use the AI to extract an executive summary or identify the 3 most important trends impacting your specific industry. I think that is important. I think it's a really cool way to use AI. But there be dragons. Make sure you've at least read the article. I think it's a really good way to reinforce what you've learned. And I know you don't have a lot of time, but a lot of times the nuance in the articles is why you need to read it. Now, I think it's very, very good to help summarize it or give you an idea if the 50-page PDF is worth your time to sit down and read. But if you're going to use it and trust the data it extracts from it, I recommend you have read it, because there's a lot of gold in them hills. And when I say hills, that's your footnotes, the endnotes. I think there's a lot for you to read and understand for having consumed the article itself. And I think this is one of the most dangerous parts of AI. And I kind of hate having given you that tool, but I think you use it that way, it's very, very powerful. Number 8, email triage and de-escalation. Now, I used to use my account managers for this. I would have my account managers read emails that came into me. I wouldn't get them very often, but you get an angry or highly complex client email, and the human instinct is to react to it very defensively. And so I'd ask people who read my emails for me, just be like, hey, David, you need to pay attention to this. And I would just be like, summarize it for me. I don't need the head trash and garbage that's going to come out of this email. Don't need it. Nobody needs it, right? Your client's mad about something. Maybe they just got served with papers or something, like, who knows? And they took it out on you. The reality of it is that AI is a good way to feed the email into it, ask it to draft a neutral, pathetic, solution-oriented response, and it removes the emotion and it speeds up the resolution. Currently, this is one of the main things I'm using agents for right now, is to go through my emails and just literally just boil them down for me. Plus, it's really been pretty good at getting rid of the spam. I get 500 emails a day. Only 30 of them are actually stuff I should be wasting my time reading. You get these random emails, like somehow I got on an email thing. I must have applied for a loan or something. Apparently, I'm into family dentistry or something. Everybody wants to acquire my dentist office. Don't have a dentist office. I don't know how I got on this list. Anyway, but the AI is really, really good at going through and getting rid of all that hot garbage for me. So, by the way, this one hack saves me 4 hours a week. It saves me over like 100 hours a year. Like, that's 2 weeks of paid vacation off for me. And I can't tell you how much it gets rid of the mental workload for me. I think it's great. By the way, I will go look at the emails if I need to, but mostly I just need the facts. I need to know how to respond to it. How do we get this going? Let's go to the party, right? Let's make it work. Number 9, code and tech troubleshooting. Now, full disclosure, we have an IT and MSP managed service provider company. That's a shout out to Kalre.com, KALRE.com. Link in the show notes. That's KALRE.com. We do tech, we do, and really we do a lot of it because we do AI consulting and work for people. But we have our own little AI help desk bot that helps solve a lot of problems that clients have, because sometimes you don't want to wait in line. And by the way, you don't have to pay to talk to a technician or anything else as far as it goes. And you can also paste some of your errors into Gemini or any AI that you're using, or Easy Prompter if you want to go get that. You can link in the show notes again for that. So, but it'll give you a lot of times the exact steps to fix something or to let you know what's going on. When you get the Windows blue screen of death, that's that Windows thing that now Windows puts a smiley face on when something goes really, really bad, which is the worst use of emojis ever. But the thing about it is that sometimes you can put that error code in there instead of Googling something for it. It might say you have memory going bad, or you might have a hard drive going on. And it may save you time even talking to your IT people. Hey, I had this code, I Googled it, or I put this in my AI and here's what was said. Does that help what we're doing? And also let you know, like, it might help you solve the problem. It might just say turn it off and turn it back on again. So that's one I think that anybody can benefit from it on the company. Obviously, if you're an IT help desk, you want to do that. Obviously, before you pull out RAM chips and install anything new on a computer, find out if you can, if you're qualified to operate on someone's brain or on machinery, by the way, I'm not telling you to go out and like, hey, I know what's wrong with that forklift. I'll go drive it. If you're not a forklift operator, please do not. Anyway, but it's an idea on how to do it. The last one is what I call the second brain. Now, it's a way of using AI to help connect the dots. If you've been taking notes from client meetings over the past 6 months, there may be a common theme or something that you are missing. It's very easy for us to get siloed in what we're doing. Let me repeat that. It's very easy to get siloed and look at one particular issue for a client, what have you, and forget that all of these things might be related. So you put those notes in and you say, what are the common pain points across these 3 accounts? And it will find patterns that you may forget. And that one is one of the biggest things I think you can use for it right now. Now, that's 10 tips in achieving AI efficiency. Now, I want to connect all the dots. I want to bring it all together. This is how the band plays. We're going to warm up together here. How does this look in your business when it's not just you doing it, but your entire team? How does it look when it's not just you doing it, but your entire team? If your entire team is doing it and you're all in tune, it can make beautiful music. The next piece is what we call the flywheel effect. how it can start sustaining itself. So your sales guy uses AI to summarize a sales call. And then he's working on a proposal. At the same time, he provides that AI, that call, to the marketing team. And that marketing team turns around and uses that information from that ad. By the way, Steve Jobs said it himself. Your consumers are one of your best sources of information, except when they don't know what they're looking at. But that's not the point. The point is that you might find stuff. Your salespeople are your boots on the ground. They know what's going on. They know what your clients like. Your marketing team needs that information to then write an ad. But your salespeople are busy. They don't want time to do that. So let them pass that information along. And then the operations team uses that ad to draft the fulfillment process that improves what you're doing in your systems. That is an ecosystem. And that is the brilliance of being able to use this and become much more efficient as a team. By the way, I guarantee you, listening to this podcast right now, 99% of you, even if you're at Fortune 100 companies, do not use the AI efficiency materials in that method. And that is one of the biggest multi-million-dollar things you can use today. By the way, this podcast just paid for whatever services you buy from me. Data flows cleanly from one department to another. And here's the other piece. You can reinvest the saved time. It does not mean firing people. It means taking the 10 hours a week you just saved your top performers and reinvesting part of it into high-level strategy, client relationships, and innovation. And if you want to really go for bonus points and extra credit, give some of that time back to your people. Believe me, they'll thank you for it. So to sum up what we've said here, AI efficiency is not at all about being lazy. It's about elevating your human capital and unlocking what this tool can use for them. I can't say this enough. I think that most people are using AI incorrectly as I see it. What I think we're seeing, the backlash we're seeing against AI is happening because we see these very large corporate players who are hell-bent for leather, who aren't looking at the cost to their team when they're applying efficiency. If they're just on that flywheel and they're running as fast as they can, if they're sprinting that 100 meters all day long, you're going to burn them out. And in a way, if you think about it, they're going to get hurt. That's what happens when runners outstrip the capacity of their muscles and their tendons and their ligaments to hold them together. And that's how you end up on the disabled list. Use AI as a force for good. Use it as a way to unleash time and material for your employees, unleash productivity in a way you've not had before, and give part of that back to your team. That brings us to the end of this episode on AI efficiency, about really unlocking the power of your team and how to use efficiency, as I see it, the way it should be used in 2026. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, or give us a positive review anywhere you're enjoying this podcast. And drop us a link in the comments. We'd love to hear from you and like to know what you want in another episode. This episode is the product of the comments you have made. You wanted to know 10 practical tips on how to do this, and there they are. So with that, sign up for our newsletter so you can find out about new episodes coming out. Stay tuned for next week where we will go beyond efficiency and start talking about AI opportunity and how you can really unleash things you never thought were possible in your company. So with that, go out there, do great work, and be awesome. I've been your host, David Maples, and this has been The Buck Stops Here.